So just your thoughts on where we are right now?
Adam, how's it going? I appreciate you having me on. I think, I think my reaction is probably very similar to a lot of the fan base, the Carolina football faithful, is appreciation for what Coach Brown did. And with the understanding of how tough of a year it was, just looking back, and I was able to be around the team a little bit more this year than I have in the past. And, handling the Max Johnson situation where he, fractures his fibula the first game of the year.
Yeah.
And then, handling, as you mentioned so eloquently, dealing with a death on a team that was very traumatic for the last 2 years, with a player that, was really, struggling, but also well received by the team. It's heartbreaking. And I think Coach Brown, like you said, and I was, fortunate to be around Coach Davis when his last years were coming to an end at FIU. So I speak from the experience of when you're an older generation football coach, your compassion level goes up because it's about the players and their success going forward. And for the last 6 years, Coach Brown did a phenomenal job of taking that role. And, Adam, unfortunately, like I said, I've told you this before, I've been at the highest of highs and lowest of lows of this profession, both coaching and, playing professional football. It's a performance-based business. And unfortunately, people think that you're going to be in one place for forever. And that's just not the case. And I think Coach Brown did a phenomenal job in 1.0 Coach Brown and 2.0 Coach Brown, and getting this program where it needs to be. And I think, it's also an exciting time for Carolina football to move forward and move on with the next steps.
Bryn Renner is joining us here, former quarterback for the Tar Heels, now part of the radio crew. The mission, and I mean, I actually just went back and listened to part of his introductory press conference now, I guess, 6 years ago. And, he talked openly about repairing the relationships with the high schools in North Carolina. People forget just how, first of all, North Carolina, I keep telling people don't believe this. If you look at the NFL rosters and you look at where the players come from, North Carolina produces the fifth most players for the National Football League. California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia are 1 through 4. I don't even know what particular order, but they're 1 through 4. North Carolina is 5. To have no relationship really with the high school coaches and to have to rebuild those so quickly, what do you think made Mack ideally suited to do that?
Recruiting is always going to be the lifeblood of college football, Adam. And I think he did such a great job of understanding that, because that's what, the day and age that he came of was, hey, I'm going to high schools, stepping in there and stepping into North Carolina. I think we nationally recruited, when Butch was here, but also even when Larry was here. And then so when we had national guys and you walk in the locker room and maybe 50 to less than 50% were from the state, I would probably say.
Yeah.
He wanted to change that because of the stat you just gave. I mean, fifth most players in the NFL are coming from the state of North Carolina. I remember when we were recruiting Todd Gurley from Tarboro.
Yeah.
And he went to Georgia. And I think keeping those guys in the state because there's so much talent, Coach Brown realized that, hey, I got the Dre Blythes from Virginia, but I need to kind of stay in those, geographically in the North Carolinas and the Virginias because there's so much talent-rich programs, and developing those high school relations are really key. So I think that was big for the transition. And, you kept 2 quarterbacks that were huge. And you mentioned it before I came on and I was listening. Sam and Drake were the face of the program.
Yeah.
And when you have 2 guys that are NFL caliber, I think we experienced this when Mitch left after 1 year in Larry's tenure.
Yeah.
Those 2 kids were difference makers. I mean, they're going to be 10-year pros. And that's really hard to replace year in and year out. And then you look at the transfer portal that comes along, and you might have a kid for a year. Like you think about it, we only had Tez Walker for like 6 games last year. So like there's a different changing of the guard, and I think that's why you see the Sabans and Belichick saying, oh, my goodness, like I can't develop a team like I used to because kids are coming and going. And it's really hard to establish consistency in programs. Now, can you do it? And is everyone faced with the same challenges and teams get it done? Absolutely. And I think that's maybe the way we need to go is, okay, what's the new landscape of college football? how do we compete and where do we go from here, because other teams are doing it, especially within the conference.
So you don't answer the questions before I ask them, Bryn Renner, former Tar Heel quarterback, now part of the radio broadcast, because my next question legitimately is going to be because we have such a different landscape. Do you think? I don't know if he was slow to adapt or because he is who he is and he coached for as long as he's coached in a completely different era. If the adjustment, was he finding it hard with the adjustment to the transient nature of the sport, having to rebuild a roster every single year, the way you have to do it these days?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a transition for the guys that come from the old school, you're going to be in the program for 4 years type of mentality. And I noticed it, like I was director of recruiting. It was hard for me to navigate the transfer portal because it was strictly almost worse than free agency because you don't have a salary cap.
Right.
And, there's no cap on, hey, go get a transfer portal guy because, you have to go get the money then from the university based off of NIL and things like that. So there's almost more challenges than being, the director of recruiting or general manager as they have now than being an NFL general manager because you have to navigate, there's no salary cap. So I think that was frustrating for a lot of people in the profession that can't come from the old school mentality, that really enjoyed the progression of a young kid that, might be a linebacker as a high school kid and then transferred to, a tight end within your program because you can see the potential. So I think it does stunt the growth, and I think it's hard to be a coach now in college football because there's so much pressure to win right away. You look at Billy Napier from Florida. I mean, he won 3 games to kind of save his job, and he's done a really good job of kind of staying consistent through that. But that being said, I think Coach Brown, I don't want to speak for him, did a phenomenal job of navigating that and did the best he could with it. But I think there are some challenges within the college football landscape that the younger coaches potentially could navigate just a little bit better because they've had to do it at other places. But I think it can be done. I think just having a process in place to get it done is very, very important, especially, with the off the field staff that you have to manage.
Bryn Renner is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Not that I'm making you a candidate for the job, but I would support you if you were. Now that you're out of coaching right now, would you get back in, knowing what we know about the way the game is being played today? Would you get back in, or are you like, you know what? I'm glad I don't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Adam, it's a question I have with a good friend that TJ Yates, who's the quarterback coach at the Atlanta Falcons that I talk about daily. He calls me on his drives home. I wouldn't say no, but I like playing golf, Adam. It's going to have to be something serious. I'm a golfer.
Right.
Like I enjoy my day job. I work for a great company in KL Discovery. I love my job, and I've gotten fired once, Adam. We went 1-11 in FIU, and I watched this with Bush. So, I wouldn't say no, but it has to be the right opportunity. But I think for young coaches that get in the profession and you want to help kids succeed. And I got a chance to see Grayson James from Boston College. That was the quarterback I recruited at him with 0 scholarship offers. And recruited him from Duncanville, Texas to FIU. He had to enter the transfer portal, got benched, and now he's the starter at Boston College. That's what I enjoy. And I think, for a young coach and young coaches that are in the profession, that I know a lot of the staff at Carolina that have been former and current, that's what you want to see at North Carolina to develop in a program. And so I want to do everything I can to help Carolina football players have the same career that I had and to develop the same relationships that you and I have, Adam, now of, we've known each other for 10 years since I was a little 18-year-old kid. And I think that's what's special to me is the relationships that you build within the foundation of football, because it's a huge family. And when you go through hard things, you need family members beside you, and that's what college football provides.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question, Bryn Renner. You always say flattering things to me. I don't really know how to handle it. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that as a college student that you put up with radio drivel that we put on the radio 5 days a week. What do you think? North Carolina, UNC football, what do you think it can be?
Well, the competitor in me knows what it can be because the place is so special. I think if you walk on Carolina's campus, there's not a better place in the country, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam, I had a chance to go see them all because I was a very highly recruited kid coming out. And that place is something very, very special. I think it's going to be a very sought-after job. I think, honestly, every coach in the country will want it. But what it can be, I don't think the potential has been tapped yet. And I hate to say that in a negative way. I think there's been highs and lows, but the consistency factor of what it can be is probably what leaves a lot of the fans to be desired, because you see what's there, the infrastructure that's there, the people, the place, I just say it, the arena.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I got a chance to do the radio for this year, and I was living on the West Coast, and I forgot how special the place was, because you sit up there and you're like, wow. I mean, it's incredible. 3:30 on a Saturday, you're playing football in 55-degree weather, and it's, you know, you're in the Pines. And so
right.
I think it's very important for the next hire to be the right hire, to be a guy that can see the potential for the next, 15 to 20 years of this place and what it can be. Because I know the fans want it. I know I wanted it as an alum, and I know my former players do. And the one thing I always say, Adam, all we want to see is the best effort and be competitive.
Right.
And I think once you get the right recruits in there, I think the place is going to take off. And I think it's time that we kind of handle it and understand how special it can be.
Bryn Renner, I appreciate your time, my friend. We'll talk. We will talk soon. No, you are. I just know the best. At Bryn Renner on Twitter. We got to get you over on Blue Sky. It's all blue skies.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
The best. Bryn Renner here on the Adam Gold Show.